Here's something I want to know. I want to know what's actually illegal in Grand Theft Auto. Because there are lots of crimes you can commit in the game that will get you arrested, obviously. But there are also a whole lot of things that seem like they should be crimes that don't seem to get you arrested. Including reckless endangerment, obstruction of traffic, carrying a weapon of mass destruction, and much more. So what we're going to do today is test over 20 different crimes that I suspect could be illegal in GTA 5. From super obvious things like murder all the way down to silly little crimes like felony vandalism, and based on what we find, we're going to try and compile an actual list of laws that govern the city of Los Santos, and we'll divide those laws into misdemeanors and felonies based on how severe their response is in the game. I want to start by going through all of the more obvious crimes, the things that everyone is probably already aware will get you in trouble with the law if you do them in Grand Theft Auto 5. And once we do that, then we'll dive into the more complicated ones. So let's start with something relatively benign. Discharging a firearm in a public place. This is a crime that's pretty simple. You take a gun and you shoot it in a public place for no good reason. Sort of like somebody did to this street sign back here. Now, in real life, this crime is punishable by up to a $1,000 fine and up to 2 years in prison for most offenses. Let's take a look at what happens if you do it in GTA 5. Oh. Okay, so yes, if the cops know about it, it's very illegal. Officer, you can arrest me. Oh. Or not, you can kill me. Okay, so our first crime, discharging a firearm in a public place, is in fact illegal in Grand Theft Auto 5, and it carries with it a punishment of death, which frankly, most of the crimes in this game do. Grand Theft Auto uses a star rating system to judge the severity of a crime. 1 star means the police will come and arrest you, and anything that's 2 stars or higher means that you're gonna be you saw what happened. But what about a crime that doesn't actually involve firing a weapon? What about just walking around, pointing a weapon near people and chasing them aggressively down the street, even if we never fire a single shot? This is what we would call aggravated assault. And in Grand Theft Auto 5, it's also illegal. But surprisingly, it can actually be a little tough to get the police to show up for it. But you know who does show up if you commit aggravated assault? So the fire department showed up. I guess just for a little community policing, which is super reasonable. Hey, quit it. Stop. After a few more tries, someone eventually did call the police. I got a 1-star rating and they arrested me without issue, which yes, does mean that shooting a gun randomly at nobody carries a worse punishment than actually shooting it near somebody. That being said, if you do aggravated assault while a police officer is already near you, you will get an immediate 2-star police rating followed by death. This brings up a pretty interesting thing when it comes to how GTA 5 handles police responses to player behaviors, because, I guess similar to real life in some ways, if you commit a flagrant violation of the law right in front of a cop, you're probably going to get immediately arrested or attacked. But if you do it in the middle of nowhere, where even if somebody does call the police, the response will likely be much less aggressive and take more time, you can kind of get away with it. Check this out. You can literally just deck someone in the middle of the day in GTA 5, which of course would qualify as the crime of simple battery. And as long as there's no cops immediately nearby, it's pretty likely that nothing's going to happen to you as long as you stop doing it. But if you punch someone in front of a cop, instant stars. This does complicate things for us a little bit, but in order to get around it and ensure that we're getting a proper understanding of what is truly illegal here, I decided that going forward, I would just commit every crime I could in view of a police officer. And the easiest way to do that would just be to go to the wealthiest commercial district, find the local police station, and just do all of our crimes right across the street. Now, some of the crimes we're going to look at need to be done in specific locations, like obstructing the traffic on the highway. So in those cases, we'll generally just use the in-game 911 feature to call the police on ourselves while committing the crimes, which, funnily enough, you never get in trouble for, which means that abusing the 911 system is not a crime in Grand Theft Auto 5. Anyway, there are some obvious crimes here that we can get on our list, so we'll get those out of the way right now. Number 1, murder, which is the intentional killing of another human being, is of course illegal in Grand Theft Auto 5, but weirdly, it only gives you a 1-star wanted rating. Usually, we'll come back to that. Number 2, non-aggravated assault on a peace officer, which is when you either threaten or attempt to cause serious harm to an officer of the law, but without like a weapon on you. That's what makes it non-aggravated, and that of course is straight up illegal, and it will also get you a 1-star rating. Number 3, attempted murder of a peace officer, which of course is when you intentionally try to kill a police officer. That is also illegal, and it will get you the most aggressive police response of everything we've looked at so far, 3 stars. But funnily enough, successful murder of a peace officer, which is also illegal, will also get you 3 stars. As you can see, this game has some pretty funny value systems when it comes to ranking various crimes, but ultimately, all of these things do seem like they should be crimes. And honestly, I fully expect expected pretty much all of the crimes relating to brandishing or using weapons near NPCs to be illegal in the game. And most of them are, but not all of them. In fact, one of the weapon-related crimes that is not illegal is carrying a weapon of mass destruction. I'll tell you about that right after I commit a little crime of my own. Aggravated mental assault on my audience via a transition to a sponsorship for a mobile game. I know, new sponsor. Check this out. This is a game on my phone called Idol Slayer, and it's developed by a guy named Pablo who, believe it or not, is a fan of the channel. Everyone say hi, Pablo. This game is free. They literally never ever bother you to spend money on it, almost to the point that I don't understand how they make money on it, but that's not my problem. And it does exactly what you want an idle game to do. Passes the time, relaxes your brain, gives you a little bit of dopamine. I've now been playing it almost every day for 2 straight months, and I'm not using any of the footage that they provided for the game. All of what you see here is filmed using my own profile on my own phone. You know, 99% of footage you see in YouTube game sponsors, the brand just sends it to you, and then you pretend that you've played it, which is fine. I get it. It's an advertisement. Like, that's totally fine. I just want to make it clear that that is not the case here. If you're not familiar, what an idle game is typically a mobile game that has some kind of gameplay, but then it also has a system of progression that happens when you're not playing the game. So in the case of Idol Slayer, you open it up, you do some mindless platforming, you open up some chests, and you buy upgrades that generate coins when you're not playing. And yes, that is nonillion at the top there. I'm currently generating 95.1 septillion coins per second, and I have 18.7 nonillion coins on hand, which I think is hilarious. But the point is that it's a super effective idle game. It's very satisfying, a great way to kill some time or decompress for 5 minutes, and it's super non-predatory in any way, which is exactly what an idle game should be. Click the link below to join the millions of people worldwide who've already downloaded Idol Slayer, which can be played both on mobile or on PC. Look, it even has positive Steam reviews, and it has cross progression between the two. Anyway, you guys want to talk about crimes again? So before the break, I told you that carrying a weapon of mass destruction is not illegal in Grand Theft Auto 5. Obviously, colloquially, the phrase weapon of mass destruction is usually used in reference to a nuclear bomb or some other huge military weapon. But in legal terms, a weapon of mass destruction includes, silly little things like military-grade rocket launchers or miniguns. And in real life, you generally cannot even own, much less publicly carry, one of these weapons. But check this out. If I stand near these cops and then whip out one of these weapons of mass destruction, nothing, not a peep. So that's interesting, right? The police don't really care if you're carrying weapons around as long as you don't use them in any kind of dedicated interaction with other NPCs. And in general, most things that don't directly affect other NPCs in the game are legal. For example, reckless endangerment is legal, which includes driving on sidewalks at 100 miles per hour, putting tons of people in danger. Obstructing traffic also doesn't seem to be a crime, despite the fact that it causes loads of people to crash into one another and can actually get people killed. I caused a massive obstruction on the freeway here, and I even stood on top of it and called the police on myself, but upon arriving, the officer just got out, took a look around, and apparently concluded that nobody had broken any laws. Nothing illegal happening here. It's all just totally above board. This was all caused by a simple traffic obstruction. It's also not a crime to interfere with the operations of emergency personnel. So if someone gets killed and you call an ambulance, but you block that ambulance with an SUV, the police do not care. The EMTs, however, will get out of their ambulance and start beating the shit out of you. What are they doing? What are they doing? Oh, no. No. All right. So, well, I guess that's reasonable. There is a lady over there who needs to be, her life needs to be saved, but they have higher priority. Holy shit. Disorderly conduct also isn't a crime. Creating a public nuisance isn't a crime. Public intoxication isn't a crime. A whole lot of things that would be crimes in real Los Angeles just aren't in fake Los Angeles because they don't directly harm the NPCs. But there is one huge caveat to that. This only applies to non-police NPCs. A lot of things that will never ever get you in trouble if you do them to pedestrian NPCs, even if there's a police officer nearby, will absolutely get you in trouble if you do them directly to a police officer. They really don't like it when you do things to them. Here's a list of things that you can do near a police officer that you can't actually do towards a police officer. It includes such violent activities as honking your car horn, trying to banter with the police, and standing near them. All of these are things that a police officer does not care if they see you doing from a distance, but as soon as you do it a little bit too close, you're done. Now, there are a few possible lore explanations for this discrepancy. Not that GTA, we don't need to come up with a bunch of lore, but there are a few possible things you might take from this, right? Number one, maybe these things are crimes, but police officers just can't be bothered to do their job unless it personally affects them. That's totally possible. Another possibility is that the officers just don't actually think any of these things are harmful, so they will only arrest you if you remove plausible deniability. Like as long as you don't get too close, the officer can be like, oh, I didn't see it, that's not a big deal. But once you do it right in their face, they kind of don't have a choice but to arrest you, or else they might risk, getting in trouble with their supervisor. But I think the explanation here is actually much simpler than that. I think the underlying crime here isn't actually the things that you're doing, but specifically it's the way the officers feel about them. I think there's probably a crime on the books in Los Santos that just says you shall not annoy the police officers, like they're pandas in a zoo. Now, how exactly that crime fits into the bigger picture we'll discuss when we actually put together our full list, but first, we've got a few other potential crimes to go over. So we've basically learned that most crimes directly involving people cause the police to be called in most circumstances. And also, anything you do too close to the police will get you arrested. But what about crimes involving property, like smashing mailboxes or trespassing into people's backyards? Let's take a look at a simple case. Misdemeanor vandalism. The very first time I tried this, I used a hammer to try and vandalize this police station in front of a handful of officers, and they almost immediately got upset, pointed their guns at me, and arrested me. But then I did some more testing, and I discovered something interesting. Okay, here he comes. Felony vandalism in progress. Officer... Wait, I gotta be careful. I don't want to hit him. Nothing. This man does not care. Look at that. Look at all the damage I just caused. So why is vandalism like this a crime in some circumstances, but not in others? I think it comes back to what we said earlier. There's some sort of crime on the books that says you're not allowed to annoy the police officers. In one case, the police officers felt that I annoyed them because I got too close, and in the other case, it was just simple vandalism that wasn't really their business, which apparently isn't illegal. In a gameplay sense, this kind of surprised me, honestly. I figured that repeatedly pressing the attack button in any circumstance would basically cause some kind of police response every time, but it doesn't. The common denominator seems to be whether or not the police officers feel personally accosted by my actions, and if they do, it's illegal. Another thing that really surprised me was the crime of vandalism to a motor vehicle. I was also certain that calling the cops on yourself while actively attacking an empty car with a baseball bat would result in you getting arrested, but it only really happened about half the time. They would just as often walk right by me without caring at all. And there was a similar divide when you would attack a police vehicle versus a pedestrian vehicle. Now, you might be thinking, well, attacking a police vehicle is probably a separate crime, like destruction of government property or vandalism of a government vehicle. And I thought that too, of course. But if you go up to a fire truck and give it a whack with a 5-iron, also known as the 5-iron whack, no police, they don't care. If you go up to an ambulance and start smashing it with a hammer, nothing. Well, sort of nothing. Technically, this group of Good Samaritans saw me smashing up the ambulance at their local hospital, and they came across the street to beat me up. So there was a consequence, just not a legal one. Shout out to community policing. I guess it's also kind of vigilantism, but, Other vehicle-related crimes include the classics of Grand Theft Auto, which is technically just called grand theft or theft of a motor vehicle in most jurisdictions. And also, of course, carjacking is illegal, which is when you steal a car while somebody's actively in it. And funnily enough, petty theft, which we're going to count as stealing a bicycle, is treated exactly the same as grand theft in this context, meaning the punishment for stealing a bike is the same as stealing a car. Vehicular homicide is also illegal, as well as vehicular assault, though as long as you're gentle, you can usually commit a little bit of vehicular assault, once or twice as a treat, but if you keep going, they will call the cops on you eventually. There are a good number of other property crimes that don't seem to be illegal as well, such as felony vandalism, tampering with a fire hydrant or utility equipment, destruction of government property like mailboxes, and tampering with an ATM machine. Now, interestingly, I did read on the GTA wiki that felony vandalism, like destroying a lot of property by smashing into it with a truck, can be a crime if a pedestrian reports you. But in all my hours of trying, I never once had the cops get called on me for this, so I'm not really sure what that's about. And there are several things that are listed as illegal on the wiki that I had trouble getting to happen in practice, including drunk driving, which is interesting in a game that makes it relatively difficult to get your character drunk. Like, there's not that many places to get alcohol in GTA 5, so the idea that they programmed in a way to get arrested for it is weird, and I could not personally get it to happen. It also explicitly states that performing a near miss on a pedestrian can get you 1 star, but again, I spent about half an hour nearly crashing into pedestrians outside of a police station with no luck. So these things might be crimes on paper, but they don't seem to be in practice, which is really what I'm trying to figure out here. It's also not illegal to trespass on residential property in the game, but trespassing on commercial property is a little more complicated. In most cases, it seems perfectly legal, at least at first. You can go behind counters in most of the stores, you can mess with the chairs at the restaurants, and generally loiter with no issue. Obviously, you can't take out a weapon and start waving it around. That would count as armed robbery, which is illegal. And if you fire that weapon, it elevates it to aggravated armed robbery, which is illegal even more. But as long as you don't do that, no one's going to arrest you for trespassing. That being said, there are a few commercial places where simply trespassing will get you in trouble, like the golf course. If you just step onto the golf course or go for a quick little ride over the green, it gets you an instant 2-star rating. So what exactly is the underlying law here? Well, it's probably that commercial trespassing is illegal. But just like trespassing in real life, it's sort of up to the owner to determine when someone is trespassing, since it's a crime that depends entirely on the state of permission that's been given by the property owner. Now, since the game can't really track permission, it just sort of fakes it in specific tagged locations. But as far as we're concerned, that still makes it illegal. And I guess technically it's a 2-star crime. Of all the crimes we've looked at so far, there is not a single one that will get you higher than a 3-star crime rating from the police in the game. And the only thing that will get you 3 stars is if you actively attack an officer of the law in some form. In fact, generally speaking, the only way to get those higher levels of stars, 4 stars, 5 stars, is not by committing any specific single crime, but to commit many crimes over and over again, which of course is one of the most fun things to do in GTA. However, there is one crime in this game that will get you an instant 4-star rating, and, at least going by that metric, the government in Los Santos considers this the worst crime in their criminal code. But it has nothing to do with directly harming NPCs or even necessarily interacting with them at all, and it doesn't even require you destroy or tamper with anything. You have 60 seconds to guess what it is down below while I finally read off our full list of crimes that we have discovered. Just a really quick disclaimer, the legal language I'm using here is a mess. Like if any lawyer is watching this, they're going to be like pulling their hair out, so please just understand. We're just having fun, okay? We're going to divide the laws into misdemeanors, which is when it's just a 1-star crime, and then felonies, which is 2 stars and above, okay? So let's start with misdemeanors. Are you ready? Misdemeanors in Grand Theft Auto 5 include theft of a motor vehicle, carjacking, armed robbery, vehicular assault, petty theft, destruction of police property, vandalism of an automobile, aggravated assault on a pedestrian, non-aggravated assault on a police officer, simple battery on a pedestrian, murder of a pedestrian, and vehicular homicide of a pedestrian. That is quite a list of misdemeanors. Now, it's worth noting that most of these misdemeanors can be elevated to felony level if they're performed in close proximity to a police officer, in which case we would append the charge, meaning we would add this on to the end. We would say it was done in annoyance of a police officer. So if you did vehicular assault near a cop, you would be charged with vehicular assault in annoyance of a police officer. You can also elevate a misdemeanor by fleeing the scene of a crime after police initially approach you, such as if you steal a car and then try to drive away. And now, onto the felonies. For felonies in Grand Theft Auto 5, we've got discharging of a firearm in a public place, aggravated assault or simple battery on a police officer, attempted murder of a police officer, murder of a police officer, fleeing the scene of a crime, use of an explosive device in a public place, aggravated armed robbery, and trespassing on a commercial property, I guess specifically if it's a golf course. When you take a step back and look at all of this together, the Los Santos legal code kind of says this. It says civilians, pedestrians don't really matter very much. Property doesn't really matter unless it's a car. And the cops' feelings are very important. Which makes it extra weird that the worst crime isn't any of that. The worst crime in all of GTA 5 is simple. Trespassing onto critical infrastructure. That's right. If you set foot on any piece of critical infrastructure in the game, instant 4-star wanted level. Whether it's a secret government contracted chemical company or the military base or Los Santos International Airport. You cannot go to these places or else you'll die. Speaking of airports, by the way, I'm Annie Austin. Thanks for watching.